a business development and product role. When we were launching at the Monopoly Telco, the initial, I would say, pre-internet phase services called video techs. I'm talking a long time ago. And so this was initially, on very slow dial-up speeds for people to be able to get banking information and other information. And so I would say I was very fortunate in that way on that's really what caused the transition to happen. And then obviously when the Vodacom, who's the Vodafone affiliate in South Africa, got the licenses just as Nelson Mandela became president and launched the services, he asked me over to become part of the launch team. And my initial role was in business development and product. So yeah, I was responsible for establishing the first tariffing products and all the value-added services, of which at the time no one understood anything about text messaging. So yeah, we came up with things that launched the whole text messaging. I always say tongue-in-cheek, text messaging was the first, I would say, platform for a lot of financial services and fintech services to happen.
And so when you went down through that, and you were going down through this journey, how was it? So when you got into product marketing, first of all, you started in value-added services, right? Then you got into product marketing. When did you start developing your entrepreneurial expertise? When did that kick in, Maria? Did you feel like an entrepreneur from the beginning or not?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I felt like that from the beginning, because even at the Monopoly Telco, right, which was quite established, and remember, I was the first female engineer that they actually dare give a study grant to, because we were looking at launching basically the predecessor of the internet. It was always a new business stream and into the company, with a very entrepreneurial thinking group, even within the corporate structure. Vodacom was different because we were a team of 20, and thank heavens, we had very deep-pocketed investors. So we were looking at, I would say, equivalent of $1 billion investment, because it takes a lot of investment to build infrastructure. So yeah, we had investors with deep pockets and short arms. And it was very entrepreneurial to look at this exciting new beginning of really the GSM type services, which was the next generation of mobile, where you had everyone developing products and services to the same standards, your vendors and everyone. And really the sky was the limit. And that's the entrepreneurial journey that we went. And I think the company became the first mobile carrier in 18 months to break even in 18 months, which was unheard of at the time. And I'm talking about 94, and that coming out of a place like South Africa and Africa was I think even
How
more.
was it then, Maria? What was it like? Because there were a lot of transitions happening back in the 90s, right?
Yeah, because I mean, it was Nelson Mandela became president of the country in April 94. So yeah, you had the whole cultural dynamic of coming out of apartheid into this new promise of the Rainbow Nation, with all its turmoil around it. That year was also the first democratic elections in the country, that April. Wow. And so there was a lot of, I think, expectation, but also a lot of wariness in the country of what would happen. And thank heavens we had a leader like Nelson Mandela to take the company through that transition. And that's why I say, from a mobile telecommunications, mobile industry, and also the establishment of the initial internet, making things more affordable, it was incredible to see how people just rallied behind the hope and expectations of what that nation could be, and how mobile actually enabled a lot of the transition in the country as well. And yes, in 95 we had the famous Rugby World Cup, where Nelson Mandela went to front of Pienaar, the captain of a losing side, which had no expectations of winning, and say, sorry, for the country you need to win the World Cup. So, and that's where the movie Invictus got made. So there were a lot of dynamics, exciting changes happening, and bringing in also more diversity into companies, of now giving true opportunities to everyone. And Vodacom, from the beginning, was also a very diversely inclusive company, which I think gave it that additional entrepreneur on, because at the end of the day, innovation is just a conversation. When you
Right.
enable conversation in the sharing of ideas, magic happens.
Yeah, no, I love that. Magic happens when you share ideas. I agree. When did you, so you moved to or you started working with the US with Solid, right? You were there for
Uh,
a short.
uh, Lucent, with Octal communication systems.
Oh, really? So you were doing it with Lucent. And were you living in the US then, or were you living in South Africa?
No, I was recruited, and again, Octal, which obviously later got bought by Lucent, which was really the first voicemail platform, because of the successes that we had in how we changed the business model for even voicemail. I mean, our platforms broke even in 3 months, which was unheard of.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's why Octal said, "Hang on, we would like to recruit you to come work for us and see how we can proliferate the success also to other markets." And they were also looking at the next generation platform. So I again was working on the new entrepreneurial
So did you move to
business.
the US then?
Yeah, literally started tax day 96.
Wow. And so did you move to California?
Yeah, yeah.
And how was that transition? So we have a lot of our companies are interested in relocating. What was that transition like for you, Maria?
Well, I think like anything initially, because at the time the mobile industry in the US was a little bit behind what we were doing in South Africa. So I thought I was coming back a little bit into the dark ages. But Silicon Valley, being an engineer, and I mean, remember that was the sort of the ramp up to the .com um, uh, era.
I remember I was there. I started the first one of the first e-commerce consulting companies in 1997. In fact, P. Hong Chen from Broadvision was one of the investors in my company
Oh
at the
wow.
time. Right, we were riding it. We were riding through it. It was it was amazing, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, the one thing I realized coming from South Africa is that we just don't think big enough. I mean, when I came here into this environment, and as I say, remember that was the ramp up of the .com and the new internet era with all the e-commerce and promises around that. It was in a way that this is the environment where people are looking at pivoting. Nothing is impossible attitude. Everything is possible attitude, but you just think you've got to add at least 6, 7 zeros behind your thinking.
Right,
And
there you go. That's think bigger, right?
it think bigger, and it really took me out of coming from an environment where, obviously, from a political aspect, we were very limited. There were lots of limitations. Everyone's waiting for the government to try and do something to, okay, everything is possible. And you just need to look at building the right networks and putting the right people together, having different conversations. And again, magic can happen, which we saw a number of good companies coming out that era as well. And but it was the mindset change which was the most significant for me. And also the dynamics of global cultures collaborating together was the most, I would say, biggest mind shift for me. Obviously, moving to a new country where you don't know anyone, where you don't, I mean, at the time, I had a limitation on Forex. So I literally arrived here with my dive bag, one suitcase, and could only take $5,000 out. And this is how my new life started here. So yeah, it was also, when you do a change into an area where you don't know the medical systems and things like that, the first 6 months was hard. I wouldn't lie about it.
And
But as
so
I started taking,
when you started to come into it, right? So how important, you talked about diversity, right? And sometimes, we don't think about how important, you look at intergenerational culturally diverse, decentralized teams, how important it is to a company. But coming over here, what was it like, and what is it like from your perspective? We don't see enough female entrepreneurs, right? It's like amazing that there aren't enough of them out there for all kinds of different reasons. But we also don't have as many people of color that we should either. That's just insane. It's and when you come into this environment, did you notice that? What did you have those impressions coming here?
Yeah, I mean, it was very noticeable because, also talking to the American engineering teams, it's like, oh, well, we come from all the Ivy League schools and stuff, and we know better. And it was, again, opening up the conversations of what's happening in other countries and other markets and what would be possible.
Right.
And that was quite hard to bring in quite, I would say, set cultures. Now, Octal, in a way, was again more entrepreneurial, but there still was this barrier of, okay, we from Silicon Valley and US, and we know the best, and you're saying, no, hang on, but we need to discover more with regards to the other customers. The one thing also with Octal, which was quite amazing, is they had one of the best sales teams I've ever worked with in my life, and
Wow.
which I think helped to accelerate Octal to really becoming. I mean, they had 90% of the voicemail market in the telco industry during that time, and a lot had to do because of the innovations and how we changed things of looking at voicemail and the business model around that in South Africa. So, but it was a constant communication, especially looking at the new product range, and everyone wants to go back and say you need to integrate with legacy, and you keep on saying you can't, because legacy, older technologies, when you're looking at newer capabilities and features, at some stage that backwards compatibility is going to be a big challenge for you. So it's also this, let's do a forklift, scared of losing our customers. And
Right.
your customer, they are doing forklift changes into your competitors. So that those were always interesting conversations. But again, it's how do you find the commonality in cultural differences and different mindsets to start opening up these conversations.
And then, you look at it. So you said something important there. Sometimes the startups forget about sales because they have engineering backgrounds or marketing. How important is sales and marketing to a startup that's out there? And, if you look at it, is it 50% of it, 80% of it, 90% of it? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the type of startup as well, and where they are in their journey. Gary, as you know, I'm also a fractional COO for a female health tech company called Femmar, and they are early growth stage. So there's always the balance that you need to bring in, that if the platform and your operational processes are not a scalable, mature, semi-mature level, you really need to be careful about how you ramp up marketing and sales. So you've got to try and do a balance and bring these up in the right way. Obviously, if you're more enterprise related sales, you've got to start having those conversations in your enterprise channels a long time, because it can take 9 to 12 months to close an enterprise sales.
Or longer, 18 months, depends on how big the deal is, right?
Yeah, so there you really need to bring in good, I would say, as sales advisors while you are developing your minimal viable product. And I also want to, and the one thing startups miss as well, don't just start developing features and stuff, have those conversations with the customers.
Exactly, the customer development. And sometimes they forget they build this stuff in a vacuum and nobody wants it. And they can't figure out why they spent all this money and time and nobody wants it. And the situation is, having with, my company, so with Findo that I co-founded in Evo, what we did is we would go out to minimum 50 potential customers. I would walk down University in Palo Alto near Stanford, and I would go into coffee shops and I would interview people and talk to them. And what happened is when I did that, they gave me so many valuable insights. And then what I did Maria, I would take my iPhone and I would I'd ask them if I could do it. I would have a PowerPoint presentation there so I could understand what their reactions were. And I would send it to my engineers so they could see what the customer's saying. So it wasn't just me saying as a CEO, these are the potential customers. And it ignited my technical folks because they said, oh, this is what they really want. Let's build it.
Yeah. No, and that's why it's also so important to, even when you have the initial design and product design, what you're going through, is to bring in the conversations of the salespeople, of the marketing people in the conversation right from the start. And then basically say, okay, this is a good enough product. This is what we're going to do. You can really align your messaging on the conversations that your salespeople are having, or fractional salespeople, because most of the time it's fractional salespeople that they start with customers. But as you say, that is such an important part of the journey that can help scale sales and revenues.
And if they don't do it, they can go out of business because they never figure out where the customers are and do they have product market fit, because they've never asked the questions. They just know that they don't have sales. So, the other thing is, my friends, Steve Blank and Bob Dorff say, get out of the building, go out and meet with people. It's not about sitting in your office and coding. It's about going out and talking to people, get their opinions, go to events, go to different meetings, go to pitch competitions, wherever it is. So you can just figure out where the market is. Because if you're not trending with the market, and if you're not ahead of it, it may not be so interesting. Figure out where you are. So, you've gone down through, and you've been involved as an investor, you've been involved as a entrepreneur, you've been involved at the corporate. So what lessons have you gone down through it, Maria, have you learned that have been transferable from your experience at Lucent to experience at Femmar to your experience as investor? What are some of the things that you say, these are like the three basic things that you need, skill sets you need to have, or ways that you need to be able to build a business? What are three things that are important?
I mean, as we rightfully just made, with the first one for me is go have conversations with customers, understand what their problem is and what you're trying to solve for them. Because again, if your value proposition doesn't resonate for a customer, it surely is not going to resonate with an investor, right? So, and those conversations doesn't cost you money. Even if you just interview, I would say, 10 potential customers and distribution channel partners, is spend some time to understand that and what that minimum product is you're going to build, because that product is going to change dramatically through the next 12 months as you keep on improving things. And then the next thing is, and I think there's two types of entrepreneurs. There's always entrepreneurs who's very tech savvy, and there's entrepreneurs who's not very tech savvy. Now, I've also discovered in my journey with tech savvy entrepreneurs, some of them may be coders, is they just start liking to code an application without any proper thought around the whole technology stack design. Now, some founders understand that. A lot of the, I would say, younger founders I've come across don't. So they tend to develop an app, not develop a scalable platform technology stack, because they don't bring in the right advisors that understand both the front end and back end capabilities of what they need to do to scale. Because at the end of the day, your technology stack is just executing on operational processes. Right. And if that's designed poorly, you're going to end up limiting sales. So I always say, get in good solution architects that can help you architect how you're going to do modular design.
Yeah, no, I agree. But sometimes they don't do it. And that's when they have a big problem, because what is a goal, right? Well, how's this thing going to fit together? And, and they don't think about the overall strategy. It's really important.
Yeah, and I would say at least budget to bring, if you don't have that skill set in the company, bring that skill set into the company. I mean, I've literally seen some entrepreneurs I've worked with who weren't tech savvy that hire the cheapest single app developer, because everyone's obviously always thinking mobile apps, right? And actually have gone through 2 hijacks of the that app developer saying, okay, we're now nearly there to develop, now you pay me more money, and then I'll deliver for you the application. So hampering
After they
go-to-market.
got started, they wanted to hijack them. They wanted to raise the prices. Yeah.
90% down the process.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
And it always had, and it's not the first time I've seen this. I've seen bad software houses pull the same tricks, right?
And then how do you go down through and avoid that? What's the way to avoid it, Maria?
Good, strong contractual agreements, and you've got to always maintain your password control into your GitHubs and where the codes and source codes sit. And a lot of the other aspect is you've got to start even with a light framework, manage your passwords properly, that no one can hijack that you can always recover that.
Yeah, no, I've seen that happen. That does happen. You got to be really, really careful who has access to what, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting. And so for the startups out there, make sure that you protect your passwords and you always have access and they can't change them. You had admin functions, right? And so
and just on that, Gary, so there are tools to do that with. So one of the first things I did with some of the scrappy startups I advised is use a good password manager where you have at least 2 trusted people on your team managing the administration control. So you can safely share, because in some cases you need to, and this is also a way to try and manage licensing costs, because everyone signs up for software services that can quickly run over budget very quickly if you're not doing it properly. So using a good password manager like Dashlane or OnePass and having 2 people on the team that's the only administrators of that's a good way of gaining control of your
yeah, no,
password.
you're right. I agree with you 100%. I had it happen one time, a long time ago, where I
Yeah.
actually had somebody doing some work for me, and he did the hijacking thing after
Yeah.
and this was many years ago. I did the hijacking thing, and I had given him control of that particular scenario, and he took control of it, and he wanted the money. It was basically holding a hostage, right? And and I decided I'm not going to ever do that again. And I trusted him. He worked out, but then when it came right, it was about 90% done.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, there's many stories like that. So that's one way to help limit the risk. And then I think from, again, operational processes, if you can't operationally scale with the limited resources you have, to cookie cutter your growth, even from a sales perspective. So always bear in mind, get a base. I call it operational efficient framework. That's why you do project management and rest of your project management or program tasks, whether it's marketing or sales or anything else. Keep that efficient and workload light, that it doesn't add additional reporting requirements for everyone to be doing status reporting. And that's why.
Go ahead. Can you say that again?
So it's operationally efficient,
Operationally efficient,
and workload light.
operation. I like that. That's great.
And there's a lot of I would say good tools and aspects and project management tools, even freemiumware that you could use, but really think about an agile approach, not just from how you deliver software, but how you deliver the rest of the business operational aspects of your sales, and that help align everyone and help give the visibility to everyone. So
that you're right about that, and we don't do that, right? Startups don't typically do that because they don't know what flows from, even from sales to marketing. So they start out and it's kind of everything's ad hoc, and then you're going down through in the technical side. They're never connected to sales, so the sales have some, get feedback from the customer. But you're right, we should create these loops so people are always updated, right, and always iterating.
And with AI and some of these tools, it's actually a lot easier to do that as one task gets done, it updates visibility. So think about your operational framework very early on, because if that can scale, your company can scale a lot faster.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, it's like building a house, right? You're building the foundation first so the house is not lopsided, and you can, you know, you don't want to go down through and have a lopsided foundation. And when you're done with the house, you figure out, hey, listen, this ain't going to work because it's off 6 inches, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just not going to work. And I agree with you. And, you know, so when you're out there, you're dealing with these startups. So the efficiencies, we talked about the technical side, we talked about be careful to manage your passwords so that if you do outsource it. So how do they come up when they're going down through, Maria, in your perspective? How do they develop those contracts? Do they have their lawyers put them together so that, you know, you going to a lawyer all the time costs you a lot of money potentially, right? But how do they find those contracts? What do they do to develop contracts to be able to go out and make sure they're protected? What should they look for? So in those contracts, if you look at it, what do you put in there that from your,
Yeah.
and I'm not asking a legal opinion, I'm just saying, like, in general, what would you put out there to say that, you know, these are the kind of things you want to look for?
Yeah, so I mean, say if you're working with outsourced technical development contracts, and I would say, by all means, please always have a budget for legal advice. There are lots of very good boutique legal people out there that can help you manage the process. So from I would say, software development perspective, always make sure that you have staged the payments in a very specific, and this is why, yeah, you need to have a master agreement that does your terms and conditions, and if the contract is breached, what would happen. Then you have specific scopes of work which payment is tied to, and you always release the payments in stages based on this.
Agree. You don't do lump sum and you don't be paying up front. It's
Yeah.
better to pay if you can get it done so the work's completed based on certain stages. If you can get it done that way, that's the best way to do it. And sometimes people forget, right?
And then I would say always make sure that how you structure that, and this is the other one, is business continuity, right? Especially if you're a small team, if hopefully not a bus hits you tomorrow and takes you out, who can continue with that? Which is why your operational and documentation processes are so important. The same thing with a vendor. If you happen to get a developer that starts playing shenanigans, if you have got proper document processes in place on requirements and you've got your code access on a GitHub, you can very easily change vendors. So you all need to think on business continuity specific arrangements in a contract. And that's what I say, there's good, a lot of the large legal firms may have good distribution channel partners. Again, you've got to tie them to specific metrics. Right. A lot of the time, it sounds great to enter into a channel partner that can give you millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, you've got to understand that that channel partner focus on their business, not on yours. So contractually, how do you bring in certain measurements and KPIs that they also need to do? And then how do you bring in process, and you would need someone on your side to help do that marketing through that channel to the end users that they can bring. Yes, they can bring you tons of scale, but you've got to tie in specific metrics, and very quickly, if you see that channel partner is not delivering, don't continue with those relationships, because it's just burning up a lot of your resources and limited resources at the time.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the other thing is, when you're starting a company, you got to be careful. Sometimes they bring in sales too early and they don't have anything to sell, and they get frustrated with the salespeople. They say, well, you can't sell. And the salespeople say, well, what am I selling? Right. And there's nothing there. And so for the founders, you have your founders in place. The founder of the company, the CEO of the company, ought to be the best salesperson, and to be able to go out and sell and to meet with the customers to get an idea of what's really happening. And sometimes we try to bring people in, and salespeople, they're salespeople for a reason. Sometimes they can be a little bit tricky, and you got to be careful. You got to be careful. You get the right one, and you know how to manage them. If they don't have something to sell, they'll make it up.
Yeah.
Right. You got to give them something that's interesting to sell. So that means you, as a founder of the company or co-founders of the company, got to get out and do your customer development before you've got an MVP, and then start. I mean, I always go out and do pilots, and we do pilots in the beginning just to make sure we got it right.
Yeah. So absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why when you're looking at marketing as well, the best way to align that is to have a very clear messaging strategy across, whether you're doing direct to consumer or business to business messaging, that everyone is on the same song sheet. And again, you know, these editorial calendars you can use that, because you obviously want to generate awareness as well. And again, you stage it based on what your technology stack can handle for growth and what your business operational aspect. So the faster you can cookie cutter good, strong processes, the faster you will see that scale.
I agree. You know, you're right on target. So listen, we're coming to the top of this. Actually, we're running a couple minutes late, but what are final words of wisdom, Maria? You've been around a bit of time in Silicon Valley. And so for those startups, so we now have 143 startups from 57 countries in GSD from all over the world. So what words of wisdom, and is Silicon Valley the place to go, Maria? Is it a good place still? What do you think? And how fast when should they go there?
Well, I mean, like I suppose like anything else, and I'll just give some examples of when I was working for the Finnish government, looking at bringing Finnish companies over, and I know a lot of the startups in your programs, Gary, that they are already fairly mature in their home markets, a lot of them, and now looking at expanding in the US. Now, whenever you grow into a new country, I don't care, outside your home market, even like Silicon Valley, you've got to come spend some time here. Have those conversations. Understand the market here, you know, have legal conversations, because you're going to have to bring people over. What's the corporate tax structures you may need to set up so that you can gain an understanding? It's a very, especially now that a lot of people are comfortable doing Zoom meetings, you don't need to always fly out here. But decide on, pick a state, because just saying I'm coming for the whole US market is hard. Silicon Valley is still a really good area to come to, because most of your large corporates and everyone in the large markets are still here. Plus, you get this dynamics of a lot of the players in the ecosystem are here. Do some maybe additional research, attend events. If you are in a specific industry environment, event is still a really great way to understand the dynamics of the market. But spend at least 2-3 months before you decide, because it will give you a view on the type of budgets. I've seen a lot of companies make a mistake getting the cheaper salesperson for hire, aka on commission only, frustrated that they're not gaining traction. But when you really drill down into it, there's no support from the home company on enabling those customer conversations and traction to happen. Right. So you always have to have backup in your home country and at headquarters to be able to help that person scale and providing the right resources. So spend 2 to 3 months understanding, do you have a product customer fit in that specific market like the US? What are the things that you may need to change to tap into this very large market? And then build your plan from there. And I am always of the opinion, if you're going to bring in salespeople, they have to eat. So you've got to pay them base compensation that they can pay the rent, put food on the table. Otherwise, they're going to be distracted on someone else's.
That's it. And sometimes they forget about it, right? Well, or you give them a good pipeline. If they understand you got a great pipeline already set up, and they go out to that pipeline and there's amazing opportunities, so they can actually, where I've made the most money when I was many years ago is when you had full commission. And if you felt confident you could sell, you could go out there and make a lot of money. You just have to have confidence in yourself, or you do a draw against commission. That's another thing, right? If you're a little bit frugal, you could do a draw against the commission on that side of it. The different ways to skin the cat.
Yeah. And obviously when you come in, don't just tell and push and pitch. Your first meetings with customers and potential people in this environment should never be my presentation. So there's and this is where the word spin comes in. And there's also a methodology called spin selling. The S is to understand the situation, that the customer has, which also is questions around budgets and things. What is the problem, or the problem that you're trying to solve? Does this customer have this problem, and how have they looked at solving that? The I stands for impact on the customer's business, of if they don't solve this problem, what's the pain it's causing, the impact. And then N stands for need, is how urgent is it for them to solve that. And you're always wanting to have a conversation around that. And at some point they'll ask you, how do you resolve this? And you can then bring in your quick value proposition, what you're doing in this place. People love to talk about the problems they have and how to solve that. And that's
Yeah,
where
exactly.
that is always, I think, for me, still the best ecosystem, because we're always looking at big problems and solving big problems and sharing ideas on how to do that.
Well, you know, and the other thing is selling to the top. Sometimes people forget that some of the best people are able to sell to the top, and they can show the financial impact to the company. I remember a long time ago, we started a company, and it was retail. It was tied into merchandise planning, long range weather forecasting tied into merchandise planning systems. And this was weather, right? So you can imagine having a weather startup and going out to folks, and they said, wow, I can't tell the weather 2 days from now. How are we going to be able to do this? And it was a long range weather forecasting model based on, it was a non-linear weather forecasting model based on historic weather patterns, algorithmic math, and a guy had been at Princeton, built it, et cetera. So anyhow, but I remember I met with the president of Walmart, right? And so, and the president at the time of Sears, and you know, I went right to them. And people said, well, why would you do that? I said, because no, who's going to say no if I can convince them that it's interesting and show the financial impact? Who's going to say no as a VP of merchandising? They're not going to say no. They're going to listen to you. So at least I got a chance. And what I learned is that if you go too low in an organization and try to sell up, you stop yourself because they get mad because you're going over their head, right? And they basically freeze you out of the company. So start at the top. Don't be afraid, go to the top, but you better have a really good value proposition, and it better relate to how it's going to help them either save money or make a whole lot more money than they are now.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's so valuable what you're saying there, Gary. I remember when I was wearing a C-level hat in a large corporation, right? That I always said, I'm open to have tea with everyone, but if you can't tell me in 15 minutes what your value proposition is, because I have to figure out who from the team members I need to pull into the conversation.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Keep it
so you
at
got to be really clear coming
yeah,
in, right? You got to be
yeah,
clear and you got to be concise, and you got to know a bit about that person. Do your
yeah.
research in advance, you know, go out to LinkedIn, go out on the internet, look at press releases. So you have I remember one time I went into a guy, and this guy was really gruff. Where this guy was really, really tough. But I had done a lot of research on him, and I found out that he likes, on his spare time, he does sailing. And then I found out what kind of yachts he liked to sail. And so I did a lot of research on it. And then I saw in a couple of pictures that he had a beautiful Labrador retriever. And so I come into the office, and this guy was ready to tear me up coming in. And I said, well, how's your dog Bozo doing? And I hit him sideways. He said, how did you know my dog's Bozo? I said, because I'm into sailing, and I see that, and I was into sailing. And I said, I see that you have, you have a dog. And I said, let me tell you, I got a dog too. And we started talking about dogs. And then we started talking about the ships that he sails, to races. And that was 3/4 of the conversation. The rest of the conversation about the business, but he ended up buying. And the reason he did it, he helped because he really liked that kind of a personal conversation where we're talking about things that he liked.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's so important, that personal touch, as you say, that building that personal connection first with just pitching and soliciting someone. No one wants that.
Nobody wants it. All right, listen, I appreciate you taking your time. I don't know. Hold on a second. I think most of the stuff. Yes, Lubos, you're there, yeah?
That's right.
Do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I'm listening. I'm listening carefully.
Okay, super.
I'm putting it into my context.
We put in the so we're inside of the recording. I recorded it, so it's going to be recorded later so you can take a look at it. So Lubos is, I don't know, so you know Sainzu, Maria?
I can't recall. I mean, I've seen so many companies.
Yeah, so Sainzu's done an incredible job. They've got, how much revenue do you have now, Lubos?
About more than 1 million for the last year, but we have a good pipeline for a few million for this year actually.
Wow, that's
Yeah, so he
amazing.
just signed a big deal with, wow, can I tell? Because with Magna, right? So you got a couple of Magna Steyr. And so he's got some interesting international customers. And so we're talking to him, I've been talking to him about, what we can do in the US and moving them over here. So yeah, it's phenomenal. A company. Was it started in the Czech Republic or where was it originally started, Lubos?
That's right. It started in Czech Republic 5 years ago. And we have a big plans for this year in regarding the business development for the US market.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming next week to the Midwest, where is the Rust Belt, where are the manufacturing companies and their partners, suppliers are, and where is our business. In the meantime, we have 3 purchase orders from the US, and with a big potential. Each of them has a big potential to grow, and it's just a start. And yeah, so we see a big demand on the US market. This is where we always wanted to go. We piloted in multiple companies and big names, including Volkswagen, including ZF, including Magna, including Bosch. And now we're ready to scale.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, we're real proud of him, Maria. He's done a great job. So he was, how many, was 3 cohorts ago, Lubos, or 4 cohorts ago?
It was cohort 12.
Yeah, so 4 cohorts ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Wonderful.
it's great. It's great to see you here. So we'll have to catch up too, Lubos. I want to see what's going on with you. So it's great to join today. Maria, thanks for taking your time out of your busy schedule. It's appreciated. I'm coming out on Sunday. I'm actually having dinner with the former Prime Minister of Israel in Atherton. And some folks and the head of Technion, the president of Technion University. So I'll be out there for like 2 weeks. So hopefully I'll get to see you. It'd be nice to spend some time with you.
Would be great. I'll coordinate with you for some time because I know you normally have a very busy schedule. But yeah, it would be lovely to catch up, Gary.
Yeah, I would like it. And Sanjay's coming out too. You haven't met him in person.
I haven't met him in person, no. So yeah, it would be lovely to. I know Carl's been trying to get some times set up as well with you, and if Sanjay is out, that would be great. Because
we'll get the let's spend some time together. It'd be nice to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll coordinate.
Yeah, Lubos, and I got to get together with you too. When are you coming out to California or to Florida?
I'm in Florida, January 15 through 17, and
What are
maybe
you going to be?
19.
Where are you going to be?
Orlando.
You're going to be in Orlando because I'll be out there. I'll be speaking to LG and Hyundai and Kia actually in California. So I spoke at their conference down in LA, and I'm going to meet with them again. And so I won't be here. I'll be out actually in California. I come back on the 19th.
And okay. And when do you speak in California to those big names?
I gotta check the exact date, but it's a private situation. It's a private Korean event. So but I'll come back to Florida on the 19th or 20th. So if you're gonna be around, are you gonna stay in Orlando any longer, or what are you gonna do?
I'm planning to fly out of Orlando on Sunday, whatever it is. And
hold on.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
20. So you're gonna be here to the 21st, right?
I'm gonna stay until January 20 for sure.
Okay, the 20th is Saturday, the 21st is Sunday.
Right, so I'm flying out Sunday.
I see. Okay, because you're flying out Sunday from Orlando.
That's right.
So maybe we'll see what my schedule's like. If it's a 4-hour drive from Orlando to where I am. But
Okay.
maybe we can get together. Let me just check my schedule.
All right.
All
Great.
right, sounds great. Maria, thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you soon. And Lubos, I hope to see you soon too.
All
All
right.
right, Harry, and
All
enjoy
right.
the rest of the week, and hopefully see you next week sometime.
Yeah. Take care of yourself, Maria. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Lubos.
Bye-bye.